and I'll check YouTube. Yeah, we're on.
Aye, we're on Facebook and all.
I'm doing that just so I can see the messages coming up.
Aye, I've just stuck that phone on Facebook so the message come up and all, but I've seen you frozen in Facebook already.
Hi guys.
That's it, it's freed up now. So, Facebook. Hi Diane. Hi Harry.
I've got the last brave that Reverend of Wrestling Jim Campbell, Stuart Laird, Lee McCormack, Lenny Hughes, Gary Forbes, Brian Cunningham, George Neve, Stephen McNeil, Eddie Wolfries, hi Eddie, Steve Young, Robert T. Bruce.
Okay, Paul Fulton, Mags McLaughlin says hi Davey 1 and hi David 1 and hi David 2. Yeah, I don't know what one is. Just get the number right.
You know something? I'm no precious about that. Call me David 2. That's probably easier.
I'm no precious about it either. You just call me whatever you bloody well want. Aye, like that. Hi Arthur. Hi Julie. So, hi H. Afternoon Davies and Indy family. And hi Jimmy Johnson. So, a couple more minutes to let's go. What is it? That's us just went 4 o'clock. We'll get underway in a second. Hi Nancy. Hi Neil. Hi Quentin. You're going to enjoy this one, Quentin.
What we need is 12 people get in their seats. Somebody come in. Sing a song or whatever, you know.
Let me get my glasses on to get this waffle underway. Oh, it's 61. Anyway, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Two Davies show. I'm Davey, and he's David. All right. And topics for discussion today: the awakening happening in England, Lord Frost's likely appointment as the Minister for the Union, Scottish Government financing the railway siding in Blackford, Starmer, is he a political conman or is he not? Bojo and his nuclear weapons, and we'll, as we go through, obviously we'll try and address your comments as they come up on the subject we're talking about. And finally, we'll get round to how we're getting on with trying to pressurise councils into opening up warm banks and things like that. David's got some news on his end, and it's looking like North Lanarkshire Council are going to do something as well. And as we know, Fife and I think Fife is looking as if they're not going to do nothing, I think it was, and West Lothian's taking a different approach to East Lothian. So we'll discuss all that as we get towards the end. So we'll start off with the awakening that's happening in England and the protests that have been taking place over the cost of living crisis, and the fact that the trade union movement is actually having to take the lead on this one because the Labour Party just won't. So, you know about Gary, you're finding Facebook's are pushing unionists. Of course, they're paying for the posts. Anyway, David, you're aware of the protests in Manchester yesterday, aye?
Yeah. Well, actually, online, I named him as my long-lost cousin because he was saying just the kind of stuff that we've been saying. Yeah?
Eddie Dempsey for the RNP.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Why is it everybody tries to contact me just when I go online? Anyway, yeah, it was an excellent speech. I mean, I'd love to be in that crowd. That must have been electric when he said some of them things. He had the crowd well and truly with him. No wonder. Look what's happening to us all. And I'm not just talking about people in Scotland. I'm talking about people in England, Wales as well. You know, so Northern Ireland are hooked up with the air, the Southern Ireland. So they're not going to be quite so affected, I understand, or it could be wrong. I tend to keep my head squared on Scotland. But the thing that's happening to all of us, no wonder people are getting angry. I wonder, you know.
Anne Armstrong's made an interesting comment on Facebook. Anne Armstrong's making an interesting comment on Facebook in which she said that she hasn't seen any protests. And that's the point we're trying to make, Anne. Unless you went online to see the protest that happened in London, happened in Liverpool, and the one yesterday in Manchester, then there's absolutely no chance that you would know about them because the MSM just ain't turning their cameras towards them.
That's right. And what Ms. Maitland said the other day there in her speech about the fact that the BBC are very, very much being run along Tory lines and the Tory leadership lines is very, very true because the BBC are, regarding Brexit, regarding anything that's bad for the Tories.
We remember the protests in London outside the BBC when the people outside the BBC headquarters in London, there must have been 250,000 of them, all shouted at the BBC, "Where's your cameras?" the way we were doing it in Glasgow years before.
Yeah.
You know.
The difficulty is when you are a broadcaster, you can spin something like that very much to your narrative. And that's what you've got to be careful when that's what I was always worried about when we did the BBC broadcast. At one time, they actually came out, they sent out one of the lads to come and invite a few of us in to have a conversation with them. And I just went, no thanks. Because you know fine well, you'd be in a situation where you get doorstep. As simple as that. And they would try and make you look like a bunch of numpties. They'd go out their way to make you look like a bunch of numpties.
A reporter out to speak to me, Billy McNeil. And Billy went back and submitted his report, but he told me before he went back and submitted his interview that it was going to be butchered. You know, he told me, he says, "David, he says, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to honour what you're saying to me." He says, "What they're going to say is that you refuse to come in and talk to them."
Yeah, well,
they're not going to say that you offered for them to put the tables out and the chairs out and offered for them to come out and sit round the table with you with their cameras and Independence Live's cameras, and we can have the debate there.
Yeah.
You know, that way they couldn't doorstep us.
They will always, don't forget, they're seasoned professionals. They will always try to control the narrative for their own ends. As simple as that, you know. So be very, very careful if you ever get approached by anybody from the media, right? The best answer is no thanks, you know.
As I say, the awakening that's happening in England, the public protest, the backing for the trade union movement is quite inspiring at this point in time.
Yeah.
Tories don't like it. The mainstream media are trying to portray it as disruptive, as detrimental to the economy. But that's the whole point of strikes and a general strikes sort of thing. The idea is to disrupt the economy and bring the establishment to its knees so that it considers its position.
Yeah, it's actually quite heartening because there was a time in the short past when we were all going, "Come on, unions, what are you? What are you doing?" And now all of a sudden we've got this upwelling of the unionist campaign and going on and all the rest. It's actually good to see because when
it's interesting that the manipulation of the trade union members in Scotland is different from the manipulation of the trade union. There isn't any manipulation of trade union members in England, but up here what we're seeing is manipulation of the trade unions by the Labour Party. I mean, they've been made absolutely a top end offer. On the lowest paid and gradually getting less as you go up the scale.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about that much less. People on 20,000 a year, there's an extra 2,000 quid. People on 20,000 to 39,000 a year, there's an extra 925 quid. Those on 39,000 upwards, there's an extra 1,900 quid. So, you know, it was a graduation.
Yeah.
But the people at the top still got the most.
But David, just run us through what happened in the Edinburgh Council. What happened? You had the strike was going to go ahead, and they were offered money by the
It's
Scottish.
always come and offered the Edinburgh Council money to settle.
Yeah.
And they didn't even make the offer to trade unions. They wanted the strike to go ahead during the festival. They wanted to make our capital look like a rat-infested shithole.
Yeah. That was the whole point. That was the whole point. And that's Labour and Tory. So in other words, it's red Tory and blue Tory working together against Scotland. And that's what you need to actually get crystallised in your head, is that Labour now are actively anti-Scotland. Anti-Scotland. Could you believe it? A party that was set up in Scotland to actually work for the workers, and now it's anti-Scotland. Unbelievable. Absolutely.
It's also anti-worker.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you get right down to it. I mean, let's face it, the guy at the top of the Labour Party in Scotland won't pay his own employees a living wage.
Oh, yeah.
As everybody knows, I call him poverty pay.
Yeah.
Because that's what he pays his own employees, poverty wages.
Yeah.
Honestly. So, the awakening that's happening in England is actually coming for a sort of grassroots movement. I've also seen the recent rise of an English independence party.
Yes.
And there was recently an independence march in England.
Oh, do tell. Please. Please.
If you nip onto my timeline, somebody's posted a video there, David. You'll find it somewhere doing a couple of days ago.
I know.
There was an independence march in England I think it was last weekend.
Yeah.
It was reasonably well attended as well, David.
Yeah, right, good.
So, between the people getting off their knees down that road and the start of an independence movement down that road, it could be interesting over the next 12 months.
I've got to tell you, having lived there for 18 years, even look, we're not talking about London here. In London, crowds gather all the time for various issues, right? But when you're talking about outside of London...
This one's for comedy value for all you people on the stream. John Dunberg, it's my John. Your point on the 25% tax rate right across the board. Do you know, John, that could actually work. But we'll not talk about that now. We'll talk about the idea that you think you live in the same country as the rest of us. You don't. You live in England. If you want to deny the existence of your own country when you've got the flag up on your... as your icon... Well, that's up with you, John, but we're not going to get into it with you. But the idea of a flat rate of 25% right across the board could actually work, John, if people bother asked to pay taxes and they levied taxes properly. But that's a discussion for another day. It's actually quite a helpful comment for a change. But the idea that you live in Scotland and we live in England, or we all live in the one country, it's not a country. The international definition of the United Kingdom is a state made up of component parts. It's recognised in the United Nations the same way that the federal German states recognised, or the United States of America is recognised. It's seen as a union. So this idea that Scotland and England and Northern Ireland and Wales is one country, don't kid yourself, son. It's constituted by treaties. Now let's get back on track. Just put that up for comedy value, folks. Somebody doesn't understand, a unionist that doesn't understand the word union. Wow, brilliant. Right, let's move on to Lord Frost and his likely appointment as Minister for the Union. What do you make it, David?
Well, Mr. Frost, as he once was brought in to deal with the negotiation for the EU, right? Why should this man of all be anything to do with anything when he is not an elected member of any parliament, right? And now we've got the situation where he's going to take over as being the Minister for the Union, right? Yet again, unelected. He's just a bloke off the street as far as I'm concerned. I don't give a fuck if somebody's got the word Lord, Sir, or whatever in front of their name. As far as I'm concerned, they don't bloody deserve it unless they don't deserve it anyway, right? I'll give respect to somebody that's maybe invented something or done something for the people or whatever. These people don't. Simple as that. They don't. And the Lord Frost, being brought in to be this blooming the minister for the union is absolutely ridiculous. Plus the fact, here's the rub: in order to instate a new treaty of union, they have to get rid of the old one first. And the moment they get rid of that old one first, and then they say, right, come on, Scotland, are you going to join in with that? We go, excuse me, are these yours?
And I did take this one's good. I want to have a bit of fun today, and I want this not to be so downhearted. So John Dunn Burgess from London has asked, so would I consider John a foreigner? Aye, John, you are a foreigner. You're English. Fuck's sake. Mental. Wow. Just because we've got a common travel area and you don't need a passport to get here, doesn't mean you're not in another country. Sorry, John. Hey, I like that, and I like England. You're lovely people, generous people, quick to react to tragedy and other parts of the world, but not in their own fucking country. But that's beside the point. Just people, lovely people, but you're still a fucking foreigner. And the clue's in the name of your country: England, Scotland, 2 foreign countries.
Yes, that's right.
And a union, because you're a unionist, and unionists need to understand what a union. Anyway, back to Lord Frost. Did you see what his ideas were to preserve the union?
Yeah.
To declare that Scotland and Wales doesn't exist. To write a new treaty of union, as you've just spoke about, right? Now, we've had this with the Constitutional Reform Committee, for any of you that want to see this. Now, the Constitutional Reform Committee said there should be a new treaty of union, but the sticking point is because of the existing treaty of union, there'd need to be a referendum in Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland to ratify the new treaty.
Correct.
And Northern Ireland, Wales.
No, importantly, David, they would have to extinguish the old treaty first.
No, they'd need to wait to the referendum before they could ratify a new treaty. They couldn't extinguish the old one until they could ratify a new one.
Okay, it could be done the same day, extinguishing the old one, bring the new one in, right?
Once the referendum is taking place, that's correct. But the problem for the reason why it keeps getting kicked out of the Commons when the Constitutional Reform Committee, which sits in the Lords, make these daft ideas is because the Commons know that the referendums that would have to be held in Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, the people are just no trapping themselves in a unitary state with England, especially as it's right-wing and it looks to the past and sees the future. Yeah. So Lord Frost's appointment as a Minister for the Union, rather than putting together a committee of people from the Union and asking the people of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland what they want, they're going to try and fucking dictate. They learn nothing, they know nothing. It's their imperial mindset. It's just stupid, isn't it?
It's a non-runner. But the important reason why we've brought it up on this show is because we see every day people putting up, have you seen this? They're going to bring forward a new treaty of union or the rest of it. It's a non-runner. Believe me, the thing is already fallen on its way.
Hey, this is brilliant. Oh, John, you're comedy today. I love it. Hey, I would never class the Jocks as foreigners. He's a racist as well as an idiot. Oh, mental. Oh, John, you're brilliant today. I love you today.
John, can I ask, if we started calling you names, right? Like you used to have, what was the one you had back way back? Limeys, you were called. We would never call you something like that, and yet you call us Jocks. Do you not see how xenophobic that sounds?
David's explaining it to you, John. Davey, what racist? You've just branded us Jocks, sweaty socks, whatever you want to call it. We're people, we're Scots, we're no Jocks.
Yeah.
The term Jock Thompson drains an internal thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you want to know who Jock Thompson is, nip up to the Church of Scotland, they'll tell you. Right, anyway, let's move on. I knew this was going to be a nice light-hearted show today. We need it, David. It's been so fucking gloomy.
I know. Look, guys, I'm sorry. I've put out some really, really, really dark posts over the past few days. And David will tell you, a few days ago, I was literally burying my head in my hands because I could see every bit of shite that's coming towards us, and I had to write about it. I'm a writer, so I put it down. I wrote this post called "The Dark Abyss." Oh, and my goodness me! Looking back on it, that was as dark as it gets. And I am sorry if I've scared somebody with that. Then I was just giving you the facts. And
No, I was saying today, David, that I mean, I was swearing a lot today. I'm really angry, but there's been nights I've been sitting here in tears as I read some of the reports,
Yes, me too.
Absolutely in tears.
Yeah,
When you hear about people whose children are going to die because they can't run the electricity for the machines that feed them and things like that. You're just, and you know how I've got to wade through all this stuff, you know what I mean? And it really is, it rips the heart out of you. And as Evelyn here says, we're all feeling it. And Margaret Brand saying to John, if we're not treated as foreigners in England, why won't you accept our currency? And that's a fair statement, Margaret. And if John doesn't understand the xenophobia in his own country and the idea that the TAFs, the jocks, and the paddies, as they like to call us, are subordinate to them and lesser beings to them, then he doesn't understand the unionism that he's promoting. No, remember, John, when you're a unionist, especially in Northern Ireland and Scotland, then you consider yourself to be the people and the rest is to be subspecies.
Yeah.
In fact, we have unionist politicians here in Scotland and the Labour Party telling us that we're not genetically evolved enough to make political decisions. Oh, Joanne Lamont. So, John, you've got to understand, unionism's a bad word up here.
Yeah.
Because the people who call themselves unionists don't understand the very construct of a union. Let's take the European Union, for example. The smallest member has the same veto as the biggest member. The UK Union, nobody has a veto. Only England has a voice. Yeah. Only England has a voice. Yeah. We have 59 MPs, doesn't matter, fucking 650. The Welsh have got 23, and the Northern Irish have got 18. Between us, we've got about 100 MPs, and you've got 550.
And can I add to that, John? I know that you are a member of the Conservative and Unionist Party, right? But you have to understand that the union, when we eventually take our independence, it's not going to kill the social union. I've got family and friends.
No, let's not do that. We'll be
all the rest of it, right?
And the fact that he's a Conservative in England means that he doesn't understand the union as part of his party.
Yeah. Oh well, fine, okay.
Because let's face it, we've got a Conservative in England that thinks the UK is a single state, a unitary state, when it is a state made up of component parts.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't understand what unionism is, it's just banging our head off a brick wall. So let's get back to the next subject. Scottish Government finances rail siding at Blackford to take 8,000 lorries off the roads and to give a Highland Spring, a commercial company, methods of moving a different method of getting its produce to market, as opposed to having 8,000 lorry journeys. Now, the argument is that taking the 8,000 lorries off the road will, of course, reduce emissions, and it will. There is no doubt about it. It'll also put about 800 drivers off the road and all, but that's beside the point. To cover the 8,000 journeys or something, about 400 drivers, whatever it is, put them off the road, but that's not the point. Why don't you tell us, David, what it is that Highland Spring Water produces?
Plastic bottles. They don't produce the water because that's God gives them that. It comes out the heavens, right? Okay, and what they do is they just collect it and put it into the bottles that they've made, right? Now, I know if you go up the range in Highland Spring, they do glass bottles, and you see them at board. I've been board meetings, and there's a glass bottle of Highland Spring at every second position, right? Fine, but the majority of Highland Spring is plastic bottles, and we need to get away from the production of plastic bottles there is a climate crisis going at the same time as we've got an energy crisis or a cost of living crisis, right?
Sorry, John, you've learned something today, and that's a good thing. You didn't understand that calling us jocks was racist. You're forgiven.
Aye,
Maybe
of course you are.
You might maybe stop using it every day then, John.
Yeah, we absolutely accept. I accept your apology on behalf of Scotland, right? But you have to understand that you find it easy, all too easy to call us jock, and okay, we don't think about it all the time, but when it gets forced at us, we go, you know.
But John, you've got to think about it along the same lines as a black man calling another black man the N-word.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to call a black man the N-word, it'd be offensive. So it's all right for us to call each other that, but it's not all right for you to call us it. It's in the very same category as the N-word. Right, but we do accept your apology, John. Thanks, and some of your comments have been really constructive today. Anyway, back to the Highland Spring thing. Now, does taking 8,000 lorry journeys out of the equation work towards net zero when the only thing that Highland Spring water produces is plastic bottles? What do you reckon, David?
I don't know. I feel that in amongst dealing with the climate crisis, we have to keep one eye on what that does to individual people in their lives, right? We might go, right, okay, let's have this freight express, especially for Highland Spring, but there's got to be some kind of a way we can look at the winners and losers in that. The winners are Highland Spring. Yeah, their directors and shareholders will do awfully well out of it, right? And Sales Island Spring, it's like they'll get a good help because it'll be relatively cheaper for them. However, we do have to keep a mind on how it affects individual people. And remember, these truck drivers, they're consumers. They go out and buy carpets and tellies and all the rest of it, right? And they've got families. So you're not just talking about maybe 800 people, you're maybe talking about several thousand people affected by this decision. I'm not going to say I'm against it, but I do think that we need to have a better method of planning these things where there is a way of mitigating it. So therefore we go, right, the truck driver's not going to be able to do that run, but let's see if we can talk to XYZ and get those truck drivers to move across to do other runs, other jobs, you know.
But obviously, the railway siding, just to let people understand, the railway siding wasn't hard to build because the railway track runs along there.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a siding that was built. You know, but takes 8,000 lorry loads off the road, which isn't a bad thing. Thomas, a friend of mine has got a sign made for me that's gone above that salt tire, which tells you what happens when you're late. Naughty step, 50 lines.
And 5 press-ups.
DJ, you work for Highland Springs and the water's pumped through the ground. It comes to an underground spring, of course. Right. What's next on with agenda? We've covered the Highland Spring thing.
The gentleman called Sir Starmer, Sir Comrade Starmer, right?
All right.
Does the board think, or does the panel think he's a fucking con man, or what?
Do we think that Starmer's a political con man? Comments, put your comments up, and I'll be interested to see John's comments before the break finishes. The break normally finishes about 4:30. I think he's a con man. Well, he won the leadership of the Labour Party on 10 commitments, and he has well stood them all. I read the commitments out this morning from her, and I've got them here because I've got the iPad here to start working on the Morris show, you know. So let's have a look at Sir Comrade Starmer's 10 commitments, shall we? Where are we? If I can find the right bloody page. That's true, I'm on the wrong bloody day, never mind page. Here we go. Comrade Starmer's 10 pledges which got him through and took out the Labour Party. All right, economic justice, redistribution of wealth, He's nowhere near it.
Uh,
Hasn't he actually mentioned any policies or put out a proposition to redistribute the wealth?
Yeah.
All right. Social justice. And what he said he would do was scrap universal credit. And he scrapped universal credit. Where are we? And he would ban the sanctions regime at the Department of Work and Pensions. I haven't seen any policies coming forward for the Labour Party suggesting that they would do that since Starmer came to power. 3, climate justice. A just transition away from fossil fuels. I haven't seen any proposals for wind farms, hydro, tidal, down there for the Labour Party. Any Labour Party members in the book can prove me otherwise, right or wrong. Go ahead. Right, number 5, promoting peace and human rights. He's not really opposed to the British Bill of Rights, and he's been tub thumping on the Ukraine. Where's the promoting peace?
Yeah.
So, number 5, he promised common ownership of the utilities. Only 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, he was on the telly saying he wouldn't privatise the energy companies. So that's another one of his promises blown out the window, that he would common ownership of utilities. Number 6, defend migrants' rights and bestow full voting rights on migrants and European citizens with a settled status. I haven't seen anything about that either, but I have seen him saying he'd be tough on immigration. Number 7, strengthen workers' rights and trade union rights, trade union powers. As far as I can remember and see over the last couple of weeks, he has ordered the front benchers to stay off the picket lines, and he's been told to grow a spine by the trade unions because he won't stand up for workers' rights. He won't go on the picket line. All right. Number 8, radical devolution of power, wealth, and opportunity. But he's opposed to a second independence referendum, and they haven't seen any policies suggesting a fair and federal UK where all the member states get a veto. I've seen nothing like that. I've seen no proposal from it. I've heard them vaguely talk about more powers for devolved nations, but there's nothing concrete on it, and there won't be, because the establishment which Starmer is part of, it's known the business of giving its power away. Robert, you're probably right about trust no lasting long as PM. 9, he was going to promote equality. Well, you can strike down all the equality thing based on everything else he's absolutely reneged on. And number 10, he promised to provide a good opposition, strong opposition, effective opposition to the Conservative government.
Can I just say something about that, right? Here we've got the Labour that up until now, I mean, it's only because the Tories are doing so badly in front of the gaze of the people of England that their voting percentage is going way, way down, right? So therefore, Labour's starting to look a wee bit better. But up until that point, Labour were nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Had Labour taken the opposite stance to the Conservatives and actually stood against the Brexit and everything that goes with it, right? In actual fact, I firmly believe they'd have been in a better state, a better place than they are now. And we heard only just a few months back, Sir Comrade Starmer saying, "Oh no, we're going to make Brexit work." There you go. If you're a Labour supporter, think about that. We've seen what's happened with Brexit and all the thing, and the way that it's affected our electricity prices as well, because we're no longer part of Euphemia, right? And he's going to try and make Brexit work. You know, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I want to address this one for George Neves. This tells you a lot about the English psyche, although this isn't George. George is only pointing out the way they think down that road, all right? Is the choice of PM to blame them for losing Scotland? You can't lose something you never fucking owned.
Yeah, that's right.
Forever known as PM who lost Scotland. See, that's why they think down that road. They think Scotland's a possession.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can't lose something you never owned in the first place. And I know, George, that's not your point of view. You're only pointing out the point of view for doing that road.
Yeah.
All right. But Starmer, the clue's in the name. I say that in the main broadcast. It's Sir Keir Starmer. He's totally bought and owned by the state. He's a placeman in the Labour Party. And we're starting to see some true Labour people come to the fore down that road because of the strikes. People like Eddie Dempsey and Mick Lynch. No, proper socialists get a voice in the media doing that road. And what's interesting is when a proper socialist is put in front of the cameras doing that road, they don't have to rip the piss right out of the media.
Yeah.
You know?
Try Googling the people that have refused honours. Now that's an interesting group of people. These are people that have looked at and went, that's signing up to the British establishment. Don't want it, right? That's important. And he hasn't. He's taken his knighthood. Yes, there you are. I name you Sir Comrade Starmer. There you go. Now fuck off.
Just his point of view, Starmer is a media stroke capitalist plant. He's a state placeman in the Labour Party. Same as Tony Blair was.
He's another Blair. That's what he is.
Exactly.
And I was in a lucky situation where I had an office in Shildon in County Durham. And my business partner's brother was Tony Blair's electoral agent. And it's like I heard all the moves that were made to place Tony Blair into place and into where he got power and eventually got elected as Prime Minister. And I do honestly believe the same has happened with Starmer, that he's a placeman. He's been put there in order to gain power and get into number 10. And that's also the reason why he's back shifting about the people, his own people, going and standing at picket lines, because he's trying to appeal to Middle England. He's trying to get people that would vote Liberal or Tory to go to Labour, and that's all he's about. He just wants into number 10, and I assure you, it's going to be a repeat of Tony Blair. We're all going to look to him and go, "Oh, Labour's back in. Oh, fine, okay, everything will change now." Did it? Fuck. It didn't change one single bit. That was it.
It won't change this time round either. What they'll do is they'll up universal credit a wee bit and put the burden of paying the poor back further onto the taxpayer rather than onto the employer. Because what Tony Blair's wheeze was, he go, us who are earning a wee bit more than the lowest earners to make up the lowest earners' wages, rather than forcing the capitalists to pay a proper wage.
Yeah, yeah.
So Starmer's just another placeman. Right, let's move on, David, because time's getting on.
Boris
right, on you go.
Yeah, well, no, basically, Boris Johnson was talking about a newly launched nuclear submarine, saying that it offers protection and stability and all the rest of it, rather than being a weapon of mass destruction. I actually call them weapons of mass murder. You imagine if perhaps somebody hit anywhere in mainland Britain with a nuclear weapon, you would have a very, very frightened crew who wouldn't know if the family had survived, heading somewhere where they hadn't been before or whatever, right, to then rain fire on innocent people. You know, and these things just shouldn't be. We shouldn't be using nuclear weapons of mass murder to threaten innocent people somewhere else because of what the leaders did, right? That's my argument. That's my campaign for nuclear disarmament argument in a nutshell, right?
You know, as an ex-professional soldier, the new deterrent, as they call it, is the only weapon I know that is called a deterrent.
Yeah, that's right.
They're all weapons of war.
Yeah.
even an SLR or an SA-80, which are just the soldier's standard weapon, is a weapon of mass destruction because you can rapid fire with it. They're machine guns. They're weapons of mass destruction. But the nuclear deterrent's the only one that I've ever heard described as a deterrent instead of a weapon of war.
Yeah.
And it's no deterrent. What it is a bloody frightener on the peoples of the world to keep peace. And if you go to frighten people to keep peace, then that's a form of oppression.
Yeah, it is. Really.
So it's not just a weapon of mass destruction. It's a form of oppression. You're frightening the people in the world to behave yourself because you've got a button you could press that could wipe them out.
Yeah.
This idea that it's a deterrent is disgusting.
Yeah, but also the thing about the mutually assured destruction, right? If you get a leader that is just fucking bananas enough, and he has got enough people round about him in his inner core that'll go, right, aye, let's launch the nukes, then it'll happen. And it doesn't matter if somebody else has got nukes pointed at you. They're going to be in bunkers anyway, you know. It is Glasgow. John, it is Glasgow. No, it's not.
Right, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states that have got nuclear weapons out of 202 states.
But also, you've got to include in that Israel and
it is included in
possibly Iraq. Possibly Iran. Right?
Possibly Iran, but Israel is included in the list. Iran isn't. All right. So you've got 9 nations with weapons of mass destruction, terrifying the rest of the planet into behaving themselves.
Yeah.
Using brute force and the threat of mutual destruction.
Yeah.
To make the rest of the planet kowtow to their needs and their wants.
Yeah.
That's no a deterrent. That's intimidation.
Yes, that's right.
It's a foul thing, and they should have been outlawed by the Geneva Convention, probably after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm sorry. That's when they should have been outlawed. The technology should have been buried, forgotten about.
Yeah.
There would be no Cold War. People would actually have to cooperate with each other. And if there was going to be a war, then it'd be conventional, and pressure from outside should be able to bring it to an end. I mean, if we take a look at Russia and Ukraine right now, East and West have picked sides. But what if the rest of us says, no, we're not going to pick sides at all. We're going to isolate the fucking berries until you sit down and talk to each other. There'll be no imports on the route. There'll be no weapons on the route. There'll be no nothing. We'll freeze all your bank accounts to lot until you sit down and talk to each other. It could be done.
Yeah.
But because one of the states involved holds weapons of mass destruction, then they hold a threat, so they can't be dragged to the table.
Whilst we're on talking about the technology of nuclear weapons, let's also talk about Boris, who had a press conference today, and he did quite a long speech about nuclear power generation. And what he basically did was he started shouting down, why hasn't this been done? Why haven't we got all these nuclear power stations and all the rest of it, right? Well, the Tories have been in power for 12 years, right? It takes roughly 7 years to build a nuclear power station. They could have had several on the go, right? So yet again, the Tories using their own argument against them, they could have had that. And today, Boris Johnson was rather vociferous, or rather vocal about calling his own party, his own leadership, a bunch of numpties, right? In actual fact, had they not been such NIMBYs, they could have had wind generation solar generation. They could add a whole lot of renewable technology, and they just didn't do it. And the reason they didn't do it is because they're in bed with the fucking energy giants. And the energy giants are there for one thing, not for producing oil. If they could do it by blooming giving you a funny handshake, they would. It's producing money, producing profit, and that's all it's all about.
Well, John's got a wee different list for me. He's got England, France, US, Korea, India, Pakistan, Iran, Russia, and China. Whereas in the list that I got for Google, Iran wasn't on it, but Israel was.
Yeah.
But John, you're right. We should get rid of them. They should have been banned after. They should have been banned after Nagasaki.
In actual fact, that's the reason why we've got a few legacy nuclear power stations, because they were used to produce the fissile material used in nuclear weapons. It was the simplest way to produce it. You take uranium-235 and you convert it into plutonium. How do you do that? You run it through a nuclear power station.
Aye. Right, so Bojo's idea and all, but David, you and I have discussed on the Two Davies show why nuclear power isn't a clean energy before.
Yeah, it's just because it's not so much the building of it, even though they are hugely expensive to build as a power station. It's the decommissioning. One of Boris Johnson's quotes today was, he was talking about children born today. It'll be their grandchildren that are enjoying the power from Sizewell, right? And I thought to myself, well, hang on a second. The typical life of a nuclear power station is 39 years. 39 years, that's it, right? Okay, that's from when it's switched on and it starts producing power to the network to the point where it's switched off. The point where it's switched off, what they've got is they've got a load of shite to move, which dangerous shite, right? And the cleanup of the entire area to be carried out. And the whole thing we worked out was like 300 and something years before that greenfield site becomes effectively a brownfield site and somebody can do something with it. Yeah. So therefore, the cost of nuclear is way, way higher than anything else. You know, gas stations, oil power stations, everything is so much cheaper. But the gas stations and the oil stations, as we know, are what are forcing up the cost of electricity.
Yeah, that's why people of Scotland are a wee bit angry, because we don't use gas or oil to power our nation. We've got one gas generation station at Peterhead, which is on standby.
Yeah.
And Stornoway has an oil powered electricity generation plant, but it's rapidly being replaced by wind.
Yeah, we are largely, and I'm talking about within a couple of percentage points, our houses are powered by wind generation and hydro and tidal.
And solar.
Just started. Yeah, solar.
97% of our energy is produced from renewable sources.
Yeah.
97%. And we're using some of the excess of that to start producing hydrogen as a fuel for vehicles now. Whiteley's wind farm up in East Kilbride, the Fenwick Moor, they're looking at using the excess energy to produce green hydrogen for public transport in Scotland, in Glasgow. So, you know, it's another way of going green with public transport.
Can you put up James Carpenter's point?
Aye, sure. Green energy. There we go. Green energy is the most expensive form of energy, plus it's unreliable. The Germans have just done a U-turn on nuclear and now consider it green energy. The reason the Germans have done a U-turn is because the Russians have reduced their gas supply. But it's no case, it isn't green energy. It isn't. And as for the renewables being unreliable, well, we've got a problem with storage at the moment, but there's a couple of big storage facilities going in, where the old power station was at Long Anna, and there's one going in at Hunterston B. But more importantly, tidal is going to become much more important, and wind out there in the sea is going to become much more important. And you rang, Scotland's been producing 97% or 90% plus of its domestic energy needs now from one generation for a couple of years. So it seems to be reliable. The wind blows a lot.
Yeah. The reliability comes in when you do it enough times. You know, you have to understand if there was just one big propeller out at sea producing all that power, well, the wind dies down then. Well, no, the wind doesn't die down everywhere all at once. The wind might die down in a particular area, but it's still going further north or whatever, right? So the reliability comes into the system as you build more and more capability. Tidal, of course, that's great. We're producing energy from the movement of the moon, and that never stops. It keeps on going round, and there's a big bubble of water that follows it because of the gravitational pull of the moon, and that's what creates the tides and all the rest of it, right? And that's what's creating your tidal generation. So it's always going one way at a certain point, and it's always going the other way at another time of the day, right? So, and there are points around Scotland where the amount of tidal energy that there is, we're talking like Solway Firth, that could power half of Scotland's homes just by putting a few tidal generators in that one area. That's where the Atlantic meets the Irish Sea and all the rest of it, and seemingly it's a very, very powerful tidal current,
John, I have to keep correcting here, John. You're saying Scotland's leaving, but yes, it's behind the polls. It's not. The polls have been stuck within the 3% margin of error now for a couple of years. So actually, we don't really know who's in front. We're more or less at 50-50 because there's a 3% margin of error in every poll, and it goes both ways. So we're sitting roughly at 50-50, John. And it's not a hard sell to ask if people of Scotland they would be better off on their own now when we look at the shit show doing that road.
Yeah, it's not a good look, John. The Westminster are now starting to look a really creaky thing, and people in Scotland are really the talk, if you like, talk in the shops and all the rest of it. When people get yanking to each other, it's about, have you seen this? Have you seen this is happening now? And it's coming from Westminster.
Right, let's wind this up, David, and go on to the cost of living crisis and what's been going on with your own campaign out there in Clydebank, and I'll go into a wee bit what's going on here in North Lanarkshire.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
We'll talk about East Lothian and we'll talk about other things.
You know that we've been running the Kill the Direct Debit campaign. The idea is to give the energy companies a bloody nose. Now, you might think to yourself, well, the energy companies are pretty stuck between a rock and a hard place because they're having to buy at a particular price and they can only add a certain percentage on or no percentage on in the case of Octopus and sell it to you, right? You've got to understand, we can't get directly to the energy giants. The energy giants are way over there and we can't get near them. However, we can. If we give the energy companies a hard enough bloody nose, that hurt, that pain will move uphill and the energy giants will be affected, right? So get behind the Kill the Direct Debit campaign. That's all I want to say on that, right?
Well, I want to say a wee bit more on that. The reason for killing the direct debit is they've got to send you to the direct building. You've got 28 days before the red letter comes in, and then you get a further 8 days. So it gives you 30 odd days to rob Peter and fight Paul to stay in front. But the other thing about that is Kevin Rowley's showing off his wealth. He's away to the chippy, the bam pot. Naughty step when you get back.
That means the chippy's showing off his wealth as well by running.
I'll be able to keep this show moving. And George says, Kevin, you have to pick him up a fish supper.
Right. So off the back of that, if you imagine, we've got people writing to us who are saying, I'm an old age pensioner. I'm looking at near certain death here because I'm not going to be able to afford to keep my heating on. So what I've been doing with David's help, and David's been marvellously helpful on this, right, is I've been trying to contact Western Bartonshire Council, my own council, to say, what are you going to do? What are the things that you're going to put in place as a local authority to help people out when their houses are freezing.
I have to address this because this guy, John, you started off sensible, knew you weren't bloody delusional, but you're welcome to come here and campaign to keep your wonderful union together. I don't see much wonder when 1 in 5 children in England are going to bed hungry. I watched a wee woman in Manchester yesterday burst out in tears because she's a dinner lady and she was having to turn children away and tell them they couldn't have their dinner because there was no money in their ticket. Is that your idea of wonderful, is it, John? Starving fucking children, granny riding the bus to stay warm. 15 million people know able to pay their energy bills, and you think the UK is wonderful, for fuck's sake. I don't know whether you are a bus driver or no, John, because only a drunk would look at this bloody country and think it was, this bloody union, and think it was wonderful.
Yeah.
If you don't feel the pain of your neighbours where they're putting their children to bed hungry, then you're definitely a Tory, you're heartless.
Right.
But,
I think
you're welcome to come here, John, and campaign to keep your wonderful union together. But remember, for the majority, it's no wonderful union, including the people in England.
David,
let me finish this, David, and then you can come in. And by the way, John, 49% of people in England want to break this union up. That'll soon be there. Because your politicians were telling the Scots last week that used BAM subsidises for £2,000 per person. And when you can't feed your children down that road and you think you're giving £2,000 of your taxpayer to every Scotsman, you're wanting rid of Scotland. Simple as that.
I think John said enough of the programme. Okay, right. The point I'm trying to make is that we were getting literally communications from umpteen people that were saying that they're now in the most awful place imaginable, right? So I thought, right, my own area, I'm in Western Bartonshire. I thought I'll try and make some kind of impact just in Western Bartonshire and see how I get on, and then pass that to other people to do in their own areas, right? As it turns out, to cut a long story short, I got nowhere. Western Bartonshire was like as if the doors were closed and they don't want to talk about this particular issue because I think they're worried about the money it's going to cost, and that's it, right? So I thought, what do I do? I contacted the local newspaper and I got them to see if they would write an article. They didn't write the article that I wanted. What they did was they wrote an article on kill the direct debit, which is specifically what I said, don't bother because we can do that online. But then what I did was I contacted Police Scotland. The Police Scotland were an entirely different kettle of fish because they've got to go and pick up all the crap that happens. People that are dead, they've got to go into their homes and deal with the bodies, right? And so I contacted community policing, and they've been quite good. They sent me a few emails back, and this morning I got real progress. There was a PC Wilson who contacted me to say that they were going to approach Western Bartonshire Council today. Now, I've got to wait for the response from that, which I'm sure he'll give me. But what I'm hoping is that you people take a leaf out of that book. The police are on our side. I wrote that email, that 1,000-word email, explaining the situation to them, giving them a heads up about the humanitarian crisis. And I wrote and said, this is not just for Western Bartonshire, this is for the whole of Scotland. And I think what they've done is they have taken to heart because they have been contacting people or groups of people in different areas prior to going into the councils and saying to the councils, right, what have you got planned? So that means that if you've got a council like East Lothian that have voted down even costing the idea of warm banks, they may be forced to open warm banks regardless of what the council says. They may be ordered to open warm banks. So please, if you can, contact Police Scotland and say to them, look, what are you doing to get the councils to open warm banks in my area? And by doing that, you'll add your weight to it, and it means that I think Police Scotland are wonderful. I really, really do. And I'm sure that they're acting in the best interest of us all. But surely, if each of you in your own area were to contact Police Scotland, it needn't be a long phone call. It can just be as simple as, can you find out what the council are doing in my area? There you go. That's all I want to say.
At the moment in this area, their MP and MSP on Monday had a thing on in Shorts about practical help that's out there for the third sector. I'm not interested in practical help for the third sector. I'm interested in what public sector's going to do. There are all these public buildings out there. They're going to have to be run anyway. There will be plenty of conference rooms and offices within these buildings that are not being used that can be utilised to keep people warm this winter. Now, when councils talk about like East Lothian Council wouldn't even cost it. You and I, David, through our investigations into this, know about the Bellwyn scheme. So when there is humanitarian crisis or emergency situations, the councils can crack open their reserves, use their reserves, and through the Bellwyn scheme, they'll get X amount of it back to the Scottish Government. So there are schemes out there that would enable councils to be able to spend a wee bit, help the local community, keep the local community warm, and maybe even fed. Soup's not that expensive, you know.
The Bellwyn scheme we estimate at £1.9 billion at the moment, right? Now it's got to be properly verified, but at the same time, that's what we've figured out so far that's available, and it's ring fenced. So it means that the councils can't break into that unless there's an emergency situation. Set up obviously for things like floods and whatever, right? But
George has come up with, and we'll need to know this in the head in a minute, David. I've got work, as you know. That's 5 o'clock. But George has come up with a cracker. Community bonfires like November the 5th. One thing's for sure, even when we're facing a humanitarian crisis, the people here still have a bloody great sense of humour. Yeah. And apparently Stephen McNeill thinks James is a conductor on John's bus. Leave James away. He's got a wee bit right wing, but he's not that far off. Yeah, we'll be able to draw him back in.
just to maybe help the people of London, right? Please remember, Westminster is going to cost umpty billions of pounds to refurbish, right? And the biggest cost of that refurbishment is deconstructing parts of it, right? It would make a cracking bonfire.
Oh, here we've got an economic literate one. Scottish public spending exceeds our revenues by 27 billion, I'm afraid. Only if you believe the JARS figures. and there's no many half-wits left in Scotland that believe that pish. And by the way, the idea that it's published by the Scottish Government, it might be, but the formula was made by Ian Lang back before the Scottish Parliament existed. And as Professor Richard Murphy points out, there's 168 estimates in it. Yeah. And the Scottish, the idea that Scotland put in 75 billion this year in tax revenues, and it didn't include things like import, export tax, alcohol duty, fuel duty, tobacco duty.
Everything you fill your car with all that money, it's like a big chunk of that goes to the treasury.
50%. The idea that people look at the JARS figures and actually believe that pish. Ian Lang himself said that he'd put them in place to make Scotland look poor.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
James, the whole point about this is that Scotland holds the majority of the natural resources. Now, natural resources, believe it or not, is wealth. And if you understand the difference between money and wealth, then you'll start to get it. If Scotland's got the majority of all these natural resources, and we do also have the most intelligent people in Europe, official, right? Then that means that we've got the intelligence to be able to utilise those natural resources, which we have been using for years and years and years. So therefore, the question of money, and in terms of what happens after we are independent, the question that occurs to me with the sterling going down the blooming toilet pan as we speak is, what currency are the rest of the UK going to use? Because sterling is in a bad way right now. When we take our natural resources, what's going to happen to sterling? Well, again, it's based upon the assets of Scotland, and the assets of Scotland are the natural resources.
Yeah, but what we'll get is we'll get people on the other side, the union side, saying that's not true. But we can prove it's true. We've just had windfall taxes levied on Scotland's resources.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, with the Westminster government saying they're going to get through the Brexit fiasco by ripping off or increasing production of Scotland's natural resources.
Yeah.
Wow. And, you know, I mean, the mere fact that people actually take the GERS seriously. Wow.
It's, people started to cotton on to it a few years back, James. The GERS is out the park. It's an act of creative accountancy.
Wow, this is a guy that really doesn't understand money or wealth, is it? Not true, Davy. Until it's monetized, it means nothing. Not doesn't it? It's an asset. It's like your house, John.
David, he's a troll. All right.
Listen, he's not a troll. He's a guy that needs a bit of education.
Oh, he's a troll. He's a troll. Right.
Right. Anyway, there you go. I start working exactly 56 minutes. So say goodbye, David.
Joe Thompson said, "Nope, he's out of bed again."
Hey, listen, enough of you're ripping the fish. James just needs a wee bit of education. Let's not be rude. Say goodbye, David.
No, I'm not going to say goodbye. I want him out of this. Listen, hey, before you go, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. We are now just 53 subscribers away from reaching the magic 1,000. We really need that to be in place to give the channel more power, more facility, right? So please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, right? And obviously hit the like button, right?
If you like the video, share it.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to say after that is, bye, Davey.
Bye, Davey.